Welcome to Altcoin Desk. I'm the multimedia reporter Noor, and I'm here with Christoph, who was recently appointed Head of Business Development at Figment in the Middle East. Christoph, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Noor. Pleasure to be here. Yeah, it's a great question. So indeed, my background has been sales and trading in both traditional finance and also digital assets. And what was interesting about Figment is really that staking is a different way of generating a reward, a return on your digital assets. We'll get into it in a moment exactly what it is, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions around what staking is and certainly what it's not. But it was definitely a bit of a jump to go from sales and trading to an infrastructure heavy company. And I think that Figment really combines a few things that are very important to me. A very professional work culture, strong bench across the board, lots of talent, thought leadership in many different proof of stake blockchains, the best infrastructure in the industry, and also the kind of, I would say, backing by over 1,000 institutional clients at this point in time that trust Figment with staking their proof of stake blockchains. So there's a number of factors that really came together. And, I believe that we will see a massive adoption wave of staking coming up in the next few months. Started researching Bitcoin in early 2017. It's obviously partially the price action. On the other hand, there was really the unprecedented amount of quantitative easing. We zoom back then, we had, the first Trump government and the massive increase in fiscal stimulus that came hand in hand with that. And I personally am very interested in traditional currency systems. And for example, the Roman Empire had the solidus for over 1,000 years, which was a gold coin with 98% of gold content. And that was largely the reason why the Eastern Europe Roman Empire did not collapse versus the Western one. And I was looking for an alternative initially for, a very small amount of money. And that's when I started buying Bitcoin, got interested in Ethereum. Try to understand smart contracts and what they're there for. And then it was really the tipping point when it came to staking was when in July 2018, I attended a TechCrunch event in Zug, Switzerland, and I heard Vital and Buterik speak about the implementation of staking on the Ethereum blockchain. And since then, it's been something that I followed very closely. And I have been staking my own Ethereum as well. So it really is one of those technologies that I've kind of see come a long way from a conceptual stage, from Vitalik's, speak to implementation, and now actually I would say mass adoption. They're actually very complementary, right? People tend to make a separation in between traditional finance and digital assets. I believe that they're all going to become part of just what we consider finance. Staking secures and governs blockchain networks, right? So the way to think about it is that you have two ways of effectively verifying transaction on the blockchain. You got proof of work, best known from the Bitcoin blockchain, very energy intensive, and then sort of an iteration of that, which is proof of stake with the likes of Ethereum, MENA being the best known proof of stake blockchains out there. And it is that sort of elegance of, on the one hand, being able to keep custody over your own tokens, but at the same time being able to contribute back to the network and generating a reward in your native currency that really make so interesting. And I believe that many of the traditional finance principles are actually implemented in staking, but they are being addressed in very different ways than what we're used to seeing in TradFi. So again, I would see both sectors as being highly complementary. think it really has to do with the ecosystem itself, right? A lot of the staking that you can find on platforms, exchanges, etc., is actually lending, right? So there's a big difference in between that. Protocol staking means you retain custody over your assets at all points in time, meaning that your tokens stay in your wallet, right? The access to the tokens is just delegated to staking as a service provider, for example, like Figment, who makes that whole journey for you seamless and easy. When many times you see staking on platforms, as I mentioned, and then actually they lock up your collateral because it's being lent out, it leaves your wallet, it leaves your ownership, and you expose yourself to counterparty credit risk. So I think in this instance, it wouldn't be fair to blame that on TradFi or any of these traditional players. I think it's really about, specifically in the industry, that the term staking has been used very loosely. And I think to say that in this interview, we'll be strictly always referring to protocol staking, which is the process of verifying transactions on a proof of stake blockchain. Comparisons you can make, but it's never going to be like for like. The reason is that in traditional finance, we have a system that is built on trusted intermediaries, from a central bank to a custodian to a clearinghouse, you name it. So there's levels and levels and levels of different trusted intermediaries. In digital finance and digital assets, it really is about removing those trusted intermediaries and finding a network where each participant is helping to secure the network. And this is really where staking comes in, right? So while you may be able to compare traditional finance products to staking from a return perspective, right, or from a payoff perspective, it is not going to be a like-for-like comparison from a technical standpoint and from a purpose that's underlying, right? Because the way that it works, as I said, in traditional finance is really on those trusted intermediaries, when the focus for blockchain is about the network and the decentralization and the different participants. Yeah, look, it's a really terrific question, because I think this is really where we are right now. We have gone from digital assets being considered as something to worry about, to something that should be regulated, to now mass adoption on the institutional side. So we've come a long way across this journey, and staking is and protocol staking at that, to be absolutely precise, is the most risk-averse way of generating a return on your petrol. Right? So as I mentioned before, you retain over your tokens. It is not a strategy that can go up or down. The reward is not fixed, so the reward fluctuates, right? But you're not in a position that unless you're getting slashed, you would actually lose money with staking. And this is why you use, for example, a specialist like Figment to avoid that risk. Figment never had a slashing event in its entire history, operating staking now for 6 years. So it really comes down to long-term investors taking a long-term view on an asset and then wanting to have the safest way of generating a return or reward on those assets. And I think this is where protocol staking will play a pivotal role for institutional investors. Overall, MENA region is really at a tipping point when it comes to digital asset adoption. Clearly, the UAE is leading the charge at this point in time. It has the most advanced digital asset regulation. It has a very strong ecosystem ranging from major exchanges, the likes of Deribit, OKX, etc., being set up in DWTC. It has in both ADGM and DIFC a number of asset managers. that are trading actively digital assets, market makers, etc., etc. Also has with Vara a lot of companies that are relocating their international headquarters to the UAE to then cover their clients globally. So there's a lot of different crossroads that are meeting here in the Middle East right now. For Figment, it has been a key decision to put the first person on the ground here, and we look forward to growing the business and the headcount accordingly. We're focusing on strategic partnerships with regional institutions to provide secure and compliant staking infrastructure tailored to the local needs and local frameworks. And I believe that we will see a very strong pickup in the adoption of staking here locally. We are working together with all major custodians, and this also helps us to generate the business here on the ground. And I think maybe the last thing is with over 1,000 institutional clients now and over $15 billion of assets under staking, Figment is the largest independent staking provider. So here locally, there's a strong culture of wanting to see a proof of concept, right? And it's a very different conversation you can have with local investors when you already are supporting some of the largest players in the industry internationally, and you're just rolling out your capabilities locally than if you're starting up altogether. So I think it really ticks two boxes here, right? You have on the one hand the reason why you should consider protocol staking in general, and then the other reason is that protocol staking itself is actually coherent with the principles of Islamic finance, considered compliant. And I think this is a massive point for the region overall and for the Middle East in general, because it is a reward for work performed. It is not interest. As I alluded to earlier, it does not involve lending out your collateral or any kind of other lending or borrowing transactions. Securing the network, you're helping to validate transactions. This is considered work, and for that work, you generate a reward. So this is really a base principle where that compliance with Islamic finance and the alignment is very strong. So I believe this is going to be a key factor going forward also for the region. I also believe that very much like with any kind of adoption of an asset class or a new technology, you always have a certain ramp-up period. And now as investors are getting comfortable, even on the institutional side, of holding digital asset risk long-term on their books, they also then have to think about first, okay, so where do I safe keep it, i.e. who's my custodian? And then the second step, okay, how do I generate a reward on it? And I think this is where staking will become the natural choice, right, for long-term investors. Everyone in digital assets has been, I believe, surprised to a certain degree to the degree of adoption, right? I think that for the early adopters, it was a long wave to ride, you know. So I think that's really something I would give anybody on their journey of investing in digital assets. Be extremely patient and try to ride the long-term moves. And I think the other thing really is that the industry itself has really managed to survive so many issues, and it's been extremely resilient, right? And I think that resilience is something that, again, even surprised early adopters, right? So at this point in time, in my mind, there's no longer any question if Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana are here to stay. Like household assets very, very quickly for both retail and institutional investors.
Thank you so much for that insightful interview, Christoph. Once again, it was a pleasure having you here.
Of course, it's an absolute pleasure.